After 527 days at the top 1 spot, ever since its verification in 2020, Tartarus would see itself dethroned by not 1, not 2, but 3 new top 1 demons that were all verified in and around the same time. Slaughterhouse, Firework and Arcturus would all be rated on the exact same day and placed on the demon list on November 4th, 2021. Slaughterhouse, being the harder of the 3, would quickly be placed at the top 1 spot, while Firework and Tartarus sat at 2 and 3. Arcturus, however, ended up being easier than Tartarus and being placed at 5. By today's standards, Tartarus is actually below Arcturus, which now sits at 74. However, this video isn't about the placements of the top ones at the time. This video is about Slaughterhouse and how it had an effect on the game that still stands to this day and how it pioneered different gameplay and mechanics. I remember being 11 when Slaughterhouse was originally verified by Space UK before we all knew he was the biggest cheat the game had ever seen, but that's a whole different story within itself. Me and so many other young players couldn't even fathom Slaughterhouse, and I viewed Space as a god for being able to pull this off. The impression and the impact Slaughterhouse had on the community still stands to this day. I mean, even if you just look at the difficulty of Slaughterhouse compared to Tartarus, you can just see how much harder it really is. The fact that the gap is still around 50 places apart on the demon list goes to show how ahead of its time Slaughterhouse really was. This level helped define the idea of the modern impossible style extreme demons. Its dark red aesthetic, heavy atmosphere and chaotic gameplay inspired an entire generation of levels. After Slaughterhouse released, many new levels adopted similar themes: intense red visuals, aggressive music and wave heavy gameplay. We'll go on to talk about these remakes sooner or later. Another major part of the legacy of Slaughterhouse comes from the drama that surrounds it. When Space UK was later exposed for cheating many of his completions, the legitimacy of Slaughterhouse's original verification came into question. This caused massive discussion within the community about proof standards, verification methods and trust in top players. Despite all the controversy surrounding Slaughterhouse, it still survived as one of the most iconic levels ever made. Other players eventually managed to pull it off after Space, completing the level legitimately, but how well does Slaughterhouse hold up in today's standards? In terms of difficulty, it's obviously no longer the absolute hardest level in the game. Newer extremes have pushed the skill ceiling even further, but Slaughterhouse remains near the very top of the hardest levels, currently at 24 on the demon list. But just by looking at the gameplay for about 5 seconds, if you didn't know the game or didn't play the game and knew nothing about Geometry Dash, and you compare Slaughterhouse to something like Silent Clubstep, which was thought to be impossible for around 7 years, you'd probably guess Slaughterhouse was the harder level. More importantly, it still holds up culturally. Even 5 years later, the level is instantly recognisable. The opening wave, the eerie atmosphere, and the infamous drop are still widely referenced in the community. And for many players, myself included, beating Slaughterhouse remains a dream achievement. In a way, Slaughterhouse represents a major turning point in the history of Geometry Dash. When it emerged, it didn't just push the limits of difficulty, it completely redefined them. Up until that point, the hardest levels in the game have been steadily getting more challenging, but Slaughterhouse took that escalation to an entirely different level. Its extreme wave gameplay, brutal timings, and relentless pacing created something that felt almost beyond human capability at the time. What made Slaughterhouse so important wasn't only how hard it was, but what it represented for the community. It marked the beginning of a new era where the upper limit of difficulty in Geometry Dash was no longer just about slightly tighter timings or faster gameplay. Instead, it became about absolute precision, near perfect control, and surviving incredibly dense sequences of inputs that demanded both mechanical skill and immense mental focus. The levels that followed began pushing even further into this territory, but Slaughterhouse was the moment where the shift truly became visible. The level had a massive cultural impact within the community. Its dark atmosphere, intense decoration and iconic drop helped it stand out not just as a difficult level, but as a really memorable one. The moment any player reached the wave sections or the final stretch became instantly recognisable to anyone familiar with the level. Because of that, Slaughterhouse quickly developed a reputation that went far beyond its placement on the list. It became a symbol of the extreme side of the game. Even years later, long after newer and harder levels have appeared, Slaughterhouse still holds a legendary status. It represents the point where the boundaries of the game were pushed so far, people began to rethink what was possible in Geometry Dash. For many players, it isn't just another difficult level, it's a milestone in the evolution of the game's hardest challenges, and a defining moment in the history of the community. Slaughterhouse coined so many different remakes, some original and others not really. And honestly, if I included them all in this video, it would be eons long. Do you not think if a level performs so well in the community, it accidentally replicates itself dozens of times, that it instantly becomes one of the most recognisable and original levels of all time? I think that's a part of what made Slaughterhouse so popular. Not only was it the most humanly insane thing ever seen accomplished in the game's at the time 8-year-long history, but it also created a whole trend in levels, similar to the 9 Circles epidemic way back in 1.9. All of these remakes connect to another really interesting part of Slaughterhouse's history, that being the level that eventually became Grief. Before Slaughterhouse became the version most players know today, there was an earlier layout often referred to as Old Slaughterhouse. That older version was never fully realised in the way the modern level was, but the ideas behind it didn't just disappear. Instead, parts of that early concept were later evolved into an entirely new project. That project became Grief. Rather than simply copying Slaughterhouse, Grief takes inspiration from the original concept and pushes it much further. The level keeps the same dark oppressive style and brutally difficult gameplay philosophy, but it rebuilds the experience with a modern standard of decoration. If Slaughterhouse represented the moment where extreme demons suddenly became far more intense and precise, Grief is trying to push the exact same philosophy even further. Unlike many other projects of this scale in Geometry Dash, its development has taken a long time. Massive extreme demons often require years of work from creators, decorators and playtesters before they can even reach a finished state. Right now, Grief is still in the verification progress. Doggy currently has 83% and runs like 25 to 100. After 2 years, all we can do is wait and pray it gets out soon. And that really brings us to the bigger picture. Slaughterhouse wasn't just another top 1 demon, it was a moment where the limits of the game suddenly jumped forward. For years before Slaughterhouse, the hardest levels had slowly just topped each other one at a time, but when Slaughterhouse appeared, that gradual climb turned into a massive leap. Even now, 5 years later, newer levels may have surpassed it in raw difficulty, but Slaughterhouse still stands as one of the most recognisable and influential levels the game has ever seen. In the entire 13-year-long history of Geometry Dash, there have undoubtedly been hard levels, but only a few of those have managed to change the course of the game entirely. Slaughterhouse is without a doubt one of those levels.